All right, so our first thing we're going to start off with is cuts, okay? So I'm going to teach you how to do a quick little wound on your own kind of inner forearm. Stay away from hair as much as possible, just because in general, you know, it hurts. But this wax is what we're going to primarily use. We're going to seal it with a little bit of the liquid latex. Liquid latex is the stuff that's going to hurt peeling off of your hair. It'll be fine, I promise, and worst case scenario, if you're doing it to somebody else, they can just deal with it. But again, please be considerate, you know, if you're doing somebody that's extra hairy, try to find the least hairiest spot. So, if you would, do me a favor, and again, I know you guys kind of have them in between each other, so you have to share a little bit. What I want you to do is basically take a chunk of this, okay? So, if you can get your fingers kind of up into it, you're welcome to just kind of peel out a chunk. I'm actually going to use my butter knife here. I'm going to cut out a small little piece. You don't need a crazy large amount. You really don't. You can see it just comes out almost like really thick, nasty butter. So feel free to just kind of take a scoop, a little scoopa. And whenever you take it off, just peel it off of your butter knife there and just kind of work it. Should take 3 seconds. This stuff's brand new. If you ever are working with materials that are really old, say you buy stuff from like the Halloween store or something, you might need to work it a little bit until it gets really gummy. This stuff, again, it's really good already because it's brand new. So just kind of work it through until it's pretty malleable. Again, it should go very quickly. Okay? Cool? Okay. So, find a good spot in your arm. I've got some weird hairy arms, so I'm going to do more toward my wrist, like I'm just, you know, really upset at my freshman class, and I have to take it out on myself. All right, that's not high school appropriate at all. All right, here we go. So, what you want to do is kind of start off by rolling it out into a little tube. You're welcome to roll it into your palms, but again, you can feel already in your hands it is definitely sticky. I like to keep it in my fingertips so I can kind of clean them off because I don't like being sticky. That's just me. So, kind of roll it out in a little tube and then just kind of squash it so it looks like a small little loaf of bread. That's kind of how I think about it, right? Like a little squashed loaf of bread is perfect. Okay, so I've got my squashed loaf of bread. I'm going to apply this squashed loaf of bread on top of my hand. And what I do, I'm going to kind of mash it down. Okay, mash it on down. And then after you kind of mashed it down, start spreading it out on your skin. Start around the edges. And just spread, 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 and blend it out. If you get a little chunk that comes off, don't worry about it. Kind of like a big mound or a big pyramid or something like that. And you can have little flakes and stuff, and that's just fine. Kind of just mash it on down. So you kind of end up with, I'll see if I can kind of show you, you kind of end up with this lump on top of your arm. See how that kind of bends around like that? Take your time. So I'm just going to keep blending it out. Now, like good makeup, the key is you will always see this. It will always feel a little bit fake to you because you're the one who did it. You know what I mean? So don't worry as time goes on if you're not 100% satisfied. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to kind of mash it down. And there are plenty of good tools for doing this kind of stuff. We don't have them, so it's basically your hand. Occasionally I have some paper towels if you ever feel that your hands are overly sticky. You can just kind of clean them off real quick. I'm just going to keep blending and blending and blending until I'm pretty happy with it. Whenever it starts to feel pretty kind of compacted, whenever it feels like it's on there, right? It's not going to fall off or anything like that, then you know you've pretty much got a good lump to work with. And it depends kind of what look you're going for, right? If this is a really deep, gnarly looking wound, then having it be a little bit puffy is not bad because that's the skin kind of, you know, picking up from the wound. Kind of how mine is. Mine's pretty puffy right now. So. All right, so once you've got that down, I'll give you guys a couple seconds here, but once you've got your lump down and you're pretty happy with it, the next step is to go through and we want to actually start cutting into this. Now, again, to anybody else seeing you do this, it's terrifying because you're slitting your wrists and that is horrible, but you know there's a big lump of stuff on top of your arm, so it's not hard to do. So I'm going to take my butter knife. You could use your X-Acto blade if you want to, or any kind of tool. Notice again, remember that X-Acto blade is inside out. Don't actually cut yourself. That would be really bad. I'm going to use a butter knife real quick. You're fine. You're fine. So I'm going to go ahead and here's what I'm going to do. I'll let you guys kind of watch. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to cut. Now, here's the thing. I could drag my knife across like you would, you know, if you were making a cut. The only problem with that is I risk kind of picking up my makeup, right? So I'm going to kind of gingerly kind of start off, kind of like wedge it in there. So I get kind of a place to start. Then I'll start kind of cutting, right? As I'm going, I'm also kind of wedging it open a little bit. and you'll get some pretty wicked little tears and stuff, and that's okay. If you pull off too much, you can just reapply it. Kind of open up that wound a little bit. And depending on what look you're going for, is it a fresh, clean cut, or is it a really deep, gnarly cut? Your choice. You're the one doing it. So just drag it across, and drag it a little bit further than you feel you might need to. I'm going to do a pretty gnarly looking cut on mine. Okay. So you can see how mine is pretty flayed open right now. I've got a little flecks of skin kind of piecing across there. Okay. All right. Okay. Feel good? Yep. Okay. So next step. You don't necessarily need this step, but we have access to liquid latex, so we're going to use it, because why not just go all the way with it, right? So what I'm going to do is this. I'm going to use a paintbrush. You can use your finger or anything else, but a little dab will do you. We are not doing a crazy burn or anything like that. We're basically using this liquid latex as kind of a sealant, right? To just kind of keep everything in place. So I'm going to take a little bit. Now remember too, just like any other kind of paint that we would use that's latex based, as I apply it, I got to think about too, I need to clean up this brush later on, because it will totally gunk up my brush, and that is not good for me or anyone else. And notice how I'm just kind of really gingerly kind of applying it. Again, it's just, I'm treating it, almost think about, I mean, you guys are in my art class, so almost think about like rubber cement. It's going to dry very much like rubber cement. Kind of, you'll feel it as it kind of dries. You'll feel a tenseness. Now this is liquid latex, so if you do have a latex allergy, obviously don't use it. But if you feel any kind of burning, then please stop and we'll rinse out our arms here. But if you feel a tightness, that's actually a good thing. The tightness is basically the glue, the kind of latexy clinging ability there. It's just that stuff drying. That's all it is. You can. I have gone through and already asked most of them. I have 2 or 3 people that have said they're not quite sure if they do have an allergy. In that case, we're going to kind of go a little bit lenient on them. And we'll just basically, we'll choose those people to do bruising and stuff on, where they don't have any latex near them. But I have plenty of other students who are extra excited to be destroyed. So again, you can kind of tell how I've gone through and I'm basically taking this latex and I'm kind of spreading it out even further. If it helps you think about it, maybe, think about like, almost like doing like a gradient. You know how we kind of pull our gradient a little bit further than it actually needs to be. And you'll feel it start to get kind of clumpy inside of your brush. If you need to, again, feel free to rinse that out at any time. We're basically going to destroy these brushes, and that's it. That's why we got them. So you can see I kind of went through and chunked up my brush a little bit, and that's okay. As it dries, it will eventually kind of come out in little balls, but just know that basically whatever tool you're using, whether it's a paintbrush or anything like that, you're probably going to lose it by the end. So we're going to give it a little bit. You can see it's already kind of halfway dry. Still have some clean spots. It will dry clear. It'll dry clear but kind of shiny. But we're going to give a couple more seconds here just to kind of dry. And you'll feel it as that stuff dries. Again, it'll be a little bit tight. Great idea. It'll be a little bit tight. But it's going to, it'll hold really, really well. It's not going anywhere. The wax, actually over time, especially with your body sweating and stuff just normally, not crazy sweat, just normal sweat. As your body normally goes, that wax is going to want to kind of peel back. So the latex gives it a quick little seal that kind of holds it on for a longer period of time. I'll go over here in a second to to, yeah, we'll go over to the nurse. Totally. Yeah, we all did it. Ah! Okay, so at this point, you've got a really wicked-looking wound, but again, there's nothing really to it, right? We want to really gore this thing up, okay? So, go ahead and take your makeup pack, and there should be one between two of you. And as well, take out your skin pack, right? So we've got our kind of our gore makeup and our skin, okay? So we're going to start with the skin first, and we're going to start with the skin first. We're going to go through, and then we'll apply our gore and everything else. Okay. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to try to hold up my palm here. I'm going to see which one of these is closest to my skin. Remember, just like with painting, we're going to use more than one of these. No one has just one colored skin, right? But we still want to find something that matches the best. For me, I'm kind of more of this peach color. I'm going to use my white sponge to apply this makeup. It is a cream oil-based makeup. I'm just going to go right over top and kind of pat it on in. Looks like it's a little bit too dark for me. Extra pale. Yeah, it should be pretty dry before you start doing any of this. Absolutely. Now again, just like a good gradient, see how I'm kind of like, I'm pulling this color all the way up into my hand even, right? That's okay. We want to try to blend this out as much as we can. Let's get it all up in there. And feel free to use more than one of those skin colors. Now, again, it's not going to match precisely, and that's okay. We're going to touch it up here in a second. But again, it really is all about kind of blending this stuff out. Now, keep in mind, as we're going along, you are going to see the seams. You see them because you put them there. As you go along, we're going to get better and better at blending this stuff out. Don't be afraid to use a little bit darker, maybe a little bit lighter. Really get it in there. Just give your wound itself a little bit of a pat of color. Alright. And again, you don't have to cake it on. Just a little bit should take care of you. So if you see my arm right now, already that's pretty gnarly looking. I mean, that's pretty gross. And as you've gone through, as you patted on your colors, you might have lost a couple of those little like waxy tidbits that really look like a rip or a tear or something like that. We'll go back and we'll put those back in. Okay. All right. So I'm going to go ahead. And again, if I need to slow down, literally just stop me. I'm happy to stop. So the next step, I'm going to take some of my colors over here. Okay, now what I'm going to do is this. I'm actually going to start more over here with this kind of brownish red color by the green and the blue. I'll start over there. I'm going to use my sponge. You could use a paintbrush too, whatever you're feeling. I'm going to use my sponge though. I'm going to get just the tip of it. Right, like that. I'm going to kind of start layering in some color. And again, I'm going very soft. We're basically just kind of pinking up the skin a little bit, almost like an inflammation. The kind of brownishy red looking color. We're going to start a little bit darker and we'll get lighter as we go. So again, very, very light. I'm just kind of sponging it on just to, again, inflame the skin. I'm not even really doing the wound, just kind of inflaming the skin. It's been cut, it's upset, it's not happy. Well, and just think, watch a movie and there's some like weird gore makeup or something. That's how the person in the actor feels, right? They know it's not real, but they have to pretend that it is. I'm going to switch over to a paintbrush. I'm going to take a little bit of this blue, okay, this kind of deep, deep blue. I'm going to mix it with a little bit of this kind of brownish red. Okay, so I've got a little bit of both on this brush. Okay. What I'm going to do is this. I'm going to kind of flex my arm a little bit so I can kind of get way down in there. I'm going to put some of this deep, deep blue down in there. I'm going to try and fade it out a little bit. And it's the deeper colors that really make the wound look more realistic because it feels hollow. It feels deep and you know, in pain. Get a little bit more on there. I'm using the blue with a little bit of the red. I'm just going very, very lightly. If you feel like you go too much, you can always kind of just wipe it away, and it'll go right away. Just kind of soften it out. This paint that we're using is, I mean, again, just treat it like you would any kind of acrylic paint or anything else. Okay, so I've gone through and I've deepened the wound using that blue and red, right? Good so far? Okay. All right, I'm going to rotate around now. Now I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to switch over. I'm going to start using this red now. So I'm going to take this red paint. Okay. I'm going to apply that kind of coming up and out of the wound. So this is now kind of on. This is basically kind of symbolically showing kind of the dried bits of blood. Maybe it's been lacerated, it's cut open, and now I've kind of had some bits. And don't be afraid to take some of that and kind of put it on the skin itself. We can always go back and kind of fade it out later. So it's like we're painting on the blood. Okay, I'm actually going to go ahead and take some of my skin color and kind of fade out some of that red. I feel like I went a little bit too deep with it. And just like, it's very easy to get intimidated when you're doing this stuff, but again, just like with doing any kind of painting, you can always paint over it. You can always paint over it. Kind of just inflaming that skin again. Feel free if you want, maybe use a little bit of yellow. Maybe there's a little bit of a puffiness around the wound itself. Maybe an infection has kind of set in a little bit. Yeah, you have to kind of do this too, where you kind of almost make up a story as you're going along. Who is this person that's being wounded? How did they get wounded? What actually, what lacerated them? Was it a clean cut? Was it a really like gross looking, farm tool, and now it's already beginning to infect? Okay. I'm also going to go through here. I'm going to use this reversed X-Acto blade, and all I'm going to do is kind of pick up some of that skin a little bit. Again, I want it to be, for mine, I want it to be really kind of ripped up looking. You don't have to, obviously. So there'll be folds of skin and stuff like that. Okay. All right, we feel good so far? Yeah? Okay. So the very last little step then is to completely junk this thing up. So all we're going to do, take a paintbrush of some sort. We're going to go over to the blood. Remember, this blood is very goopy, so it may drip or something. If it does, we'll just clean it up later. But take a little bit of that blood, just a little dab will do ya. We're going to put it as far down in your wound as we can, and kind of keep going back for more, and keep applying it until you're happy. If it drips out, good. It's kind of what we want. So the blood is just to give it that nice wet look. If you want, find a spot, like maybe a really deep pit that you happen to have made, and fill it up. Because the key is this, we don't want to paint the blood drip. We want to fill up our wound. You can kind of see how I'm doing. I'm getting a little puddle going, right? I want to fill it up, and then I want to tilt my wrist so that I can allow it to kind of naturally bleed out a little bit. Does that make sense? Kind of let gravity do the work for you. Because again, whenever you paint on blood, it looks hokey as hell. So don't do that. Again, you can see how just a little tiny bit will really do the job for you. It's very syrupy. Okay, I'm just going to kind of shake it down. Again, you can see I'm just letting it kind of do its thing. You're going to move your wrist around, let it kind of work its way down naturally. Put a little bit more in there. There we go. There goes a nice bead running down there. Ugh, gross. Okay. So when you're all done, you've got a nice, freshly cut, gored out wound. Maybe there's a little bit of purple from some bruising, a little bit of yellow from some infection. It's freshly gushy. We're good to go. Does anyone have any major questions?